The studio lights of The View hum with their usual electric buzz as the audience settles into a Friday morning rhythm, coffee cups in hand, ready for the spark that always flies when Hollywood royalty meets daytime TV firebrands. Michael Douglas, silver-haired and sharp-eyed at 79, strides onto the iconic set in a navy blazer that still carries the effortless authority of Gordon Gekko, waving with that easy grin that once melted cameras in Basic Instinct. Joy Behar, perched at the table's edge in a crimson jacket, leans forward with the glint of a seasoned sparring partner, her opening question about Douglas's latest political thriller slicing straight to the bone. Michael, your film paints Big Pharma as the devil. Do you really believe they're poisoning us for profit, or is this just Oscar bait? The crowd titters. Whoopi Goldberg raises an eyebrow. Sunny Hostin scribbles a note. Douglas chuckles, but the laugh doesn't quite reach his eyes. He adjusts the microphone clip to his lapel and begins, voice steady. Joy, I've seen boardroom greed up close in my father. Kirk fought studios the way your guests fight Congress. When a CEO earns 400 times the nurse who administers the drug that keeps kids alive, something's rotten. Behar interrupts, finger wagging like a metronome. Hold on, you're romanticizing regulation. Those same companies gave us the COVID vaccine in record time. Mia saved your life and mine. The audience splits into applause and gasps. Douglas's jaw tightens. The camera zooms on the vein pulsing at his temple. He fires back, vaccines yes, but insulin that costs $10 to make and sells for $300? That's not innovation, that's extortion. Behar scoffs. Extortion? Try capitalism, sweetheart. You live in a $20 million apartment. Easy to bite the hand that fed you. The studio temperature spikes. A producer offstage mouths commercial, but the red tally light stays mercilessly on. Douglas leans in, knuckles widening on the table. Joy, I watched my son fight cancer. Every vial was a mortgage payment. Don't lecture me on easy. Behar's eyes narrow to slits. And don't lecture me on struggle, Mr. Hollywood. Some of us grew up without trust funds. The audience roars. Twitter explodes before the segment even ends. Douglas's voice drops to a growl. Trust fund? I earned every cent while you read cue cards. Gasps ripple like dominoes. Whoopi tries to pivot. Let's take a breath, but the freight train has left the station. Douglas stands, chair scraping like a gunshot. You want real? My friend died waiting for a drug approval because lobbyists wrote the rules. You mock that? Behar rises to 5'1" of pure Bronx defiance. I mock hypocrisy. Michael, you fly private while preaching fairness. The crowd is on its feet. Security edges closer. Douglas's face flushes crimson, the same shade Catherine Zeta-Jones once teased him about during arguments. He points a finger, trembling not with fear but fury. You sit here safe behind ABC lawyers, smearing anyone who dares question the machine. I've buried friends. Have you? Behar snaps. I've buried my father without a dime of Hollywood money. The moderator's gavel bangs uselessly. Douglas rips off his mic pack, wires dangling like a surrender flag he refuses to wave, and storms toward the wings as the audience chants both names in chaotic overlap. The camera follows his retreating back, blazer flapping, while Behar shouts after him, run away. Gordon Gekko agreed. Is still good, right? The feed cuts to a stunt commercial break, but the clip is already viral, racking 50,000 views in the first minute as captions scream Michael Douglas loses IT. Back from break, the set feels radioactive, the coffee mugs now cold. Props and shaking hands. Whoopi Goldberg, voice of calm in the storm, tries to reset. Folks, we're passionate here, that's why you tune in. Michael Douglas has left the building, but let's unpack what just happened. The audience, still buzzing like being swatted from a hive, erupts into overlapping shouts of he was right. And she went too far. Sunny Hostin jumps in, legal pad flapping. Joy's point about capitalism isn't wrong. A profit drives innovation. But Michael's personal story about his son's cancer battle, that's not acting, that's pain. Sarah Haynes, eyes wide, adds, I've never seen a guest walk off mid-segment. This is bigger than The View. This is America yelling at itself. Behar, lips pressed thin, refuses to yield the floor. She adjusts her glasses, voice climbing an octave. Listen, I grew up in Williamsburg when it was rats and roaches. not hipsters and lattes. I clawed my way to this table. Michael Douglas was born on third base and thinks he hit a triple. The crowd boos. A woman in the front row stands, phone aloft, live streaming to TikTok. Whoopi pleads, Joy, he lost friends to the system. Behar cuts her off, and I lost neighbors to heroin because Big Pharma pushed Oxy like candy. Don't sanctify him because he's famous. The graphic lowers in. Michael Douglas storms OFF. The View, clips replay in slow motion. A Douglas's finger jab, Behar's smirk, the McPack hitting the floor like a gauntlet. Alyssa Fair Griffin, the conservative co-host, tries nuance. Both sides have valid anger. Pharma lobbying is obscene, but government red tape kills too. The audience groans. Nuance is dead today. A producer whispers in Whoopi's ear. She nods grimly. We've invited Michael back after the break, but his publicist says he's on the way to the airport. Behar snorts. Typical. Yell. Leave. Let the women clean up the mess. The control room scrambles. Editors splice together Douglas's past interviews. Him praising universal healthcare in Europe, him accepting awards from drug company-sponsored galas. The Chiron reads hypocrisy or heart. Sonny reads a viewer mail aloud. Joy, you bullied a legend. Apologize. Behar fires back. I bully ideas, not people. He called me a cue card reader. Miami says otherwise. The audience laughs nervously. The tension is a tightrope. Whoopi tries a joke. Next time we book Gandhi, remind me to serve decaf. Scatter chuckles, but the scar is fresh. Behind the scenes, staffers text furiously. ABC execs convene in a glass office, watching the clip hit 1 million views. Behar's phone buzzes. Her agent, trending #1, but death threats incoming. She shrugs. Bronx armor intact. The segment ends with Whoopi's sigh. America, we're better than these, or are we? Fade to commercial, but the internet has already crowned winners and losers. By noon, the clip is a nuclear bomb on social media, fragments of shrapnel embedding in every timeline. Elon Musk tweets a popcorn gif with the caption The View just became must-see TV. Candace Owens posts a 10-minute breakdown. Joy Behar exposed liberal elitism. Douglas is the real working-class hero here. Meanwhile, the Young Turks defend Behar. She spoke truth to power Douglas can't handle. A mirror. Douglas, en route to Teterboro in a black SUV, fields calls from his crisis PR team. Catherine Zeta-Jones, voice calm as steel, texts, let it breathe, love. You said what needed saying. His publicist drafts a statement. Mr. Douglas regrets the heated exchange but stands by his advocacy for affordable healthcare. Douglas deletes it, types his own. I lost my temper. Joy pushed buttons. Money can't boo. I am my son's cancer, my friend's graves. But walking off was wrong. Still, the fight continues. He hits send before the team can stop him. Back at ABC, executives huddle with lawyers. The clip's fair use is ironclad, but sponsor calls flooding. Pfizer pulls ads for the week. Behar, in her dressing room, sips chamomile and scrolls comments. Queen Joy Slade versus bully in a blazer. She calls her daughter, am I the villain? Her daughter laughs. Mom, you're trending with Taylor Swift. Own it. The View's Instagram posts a poll. Who is right? 62% say Douglas, 38% Behar. Comments war like gladiators. A GoFundMe pops up. Insulin for Dylan, Douglas's son, raising 50 grand in an hour. Douglas sees it from 30,000 feet, tears in his eyes, and donates anonymously. The plane's Wi-Fi carries the news. #Douglas Walkout is global. In London, Piers Morgan offers both guests his show. In Congress, a senator quotes the fight during a pharma pricing hearing. The cultural ripple is tectonic. Memes of Douglas's finger point captioned when the group chat gets political. Behar's smirk as OK Boomer energy. Late night hosts scramble. Colbert books a sketch. Fallon preps a song. The View's ratings spike projected 20%. Behind the scenes, Whoopi texts Douglas, come back when you're ready. We're family, even when we fight. He doesn't reply. The story metastasizes. TMZ leaks audio of Douglas in the green room post-walkout. She wants real? I'll give her real. The internet feasts. Saturday morning, the fallout crystallizes into think pieces and hot takes. The New York Times runs when civility dies on daytime TV, blaming polarization. Fox Friends cheers Douglas. Finally, A liberal calls out the machine. CNN's panel dissects body language at Douglas's clenched fist. Behar's raised chin. A body language expert claims Douglas showed righteous indignation. Behar defensive aggression. TikTok stitches explode. Gen Z creators duet the walkout with captions like "Me leaving Thanksgiving when Uncle Ted starts on politics." A pharmaceutical CEO tweets a vague apology about listening to patient stories. Stock dips 2 points. Douglas lands in LA, greeted by paparazzi shouting "What about Joy?" He pauses, sunglasses reflecting flashbulbs, and says, "Joy's tough, respect, but the kid's paying rent for insulin, that's tougher." The clip loops endlessly. Behar, on a flight to Vegas for a stand-up gig, records a podcast. "I don't regret a word. Michael's pain is real, but so is mine. We're both collateral damage in a broken system." Her set that night opens with the fight the crowd draws. A heckler yells "Apologize." She fires back. To who? The truth? Standing ovation. Sunday talk shows invite surrogatessa. Douglas's producing partner defends him on Meet the Press. Behar's writer pal on State of the Union. The View's Monday teaser promises exclusive fallout. Ratings gold. Douglas spends the weekend with his son Dylan, now in remission, watching old movies. Dylan asks, "Dad, was it worth it?" Douglas exhales. "If one kid gets cheaper meds, yeah." Monday dawns. The View's set is reset, but the table bears scars. Some microphone tape still sticky from Douglas's pack. Behar walks in early, places a bottle of insulin on the table like a peace offering or a provocation. The camera catches it. Whoopi sees, shakes her head smiling. The cycle prepares to spin again. Monday's episode opens with a montage set to dramatic strings. A slow-motion walkout. Behar's retort, audience chaos. Whoopi's voiceover, "Last week, we promised passionate debate. We delivered a wildfire." The crowd cheers cautiously. Behar speaks first, voice softer than usual. "I've known Michael 40 years. A romancing the Stone premiere. We laughed over bad shrimp. Friday wasn't laughter, it was lightning. I pushed, he pushed back. That's America." She unveils the insulin bottle. "This costs my neighbor's rent. Michael's right about that." The audience applauds. Genuine surprise. Sunny reads a letter from Douglas, emailed at 3 a.m. "Joy, you fight like my mother-in-law, relentless. I stormed off like a child, but the war on price gouging needs both of us. Truce?" Behar smiles, eyes glassy. "Truce, you old goat. Next time, bring Catherine, she'll keep us civil." Laughter heals some wounds. The panel pivots to policy, bipartisan bills, price caps, personal stories from viewers. A nurse calls in, "I skipped doses to afford mine." Tears flow freely now. The Chiron reads from fight to solution. Ratings hit a 5-year high. Douglas watches from home, texts Whoopi, "Tell Joy the shrimp's on me." The internet, exhausted from tribal war, begins to pivot. Petitions for insulin caps gain signatures. Pharma stock swabble. A joint op-ed is floated. Douglas and Behar co-authoring for USA Today. Their agents haggle over billing. The cultural moment crystallizes as a not cancellation, but conversation. Late-night shows pivot from mockery to tribute montages of both stars' activism. The View books a follow-up for Sweeps. Douglas returns. Behar brings homemade lasagna. The promos write themselves. Months later, the lasagna summit airs to record numbers. Douglas and Behar hug on stage. The embrace awkward but real. They trade barbs. A still flying private, still reading cue cards? But the knives are sheathed. They unveil a foundation. The Douglas-Behar Act, pushing for insulin price transparency. Politicians court them. A bill passes committee. The View wins an Emmy for most impactful episode. Clips of the fight become case studies in journalism school. So how chaos births change. Douglas, on a podcast, reflects, "I lost it, but found purpose." Behar, at a comedy festival, jokes, "I bullied a movie star and lowered drug prices. A new special drops never." The audience howls. Years on, the moment is folklore. Textbooks cite it beside Monroe, Cronkite. 2 octogenarians, 1 table, a nation watching. The last frame freezes on their handshake. Chiron fading, from meltdown to movement. Fade to black. The ripple from the Monday reconciliation refuses to flatten. Instead, it swells into a tidal wave of civic engagement that no one in the control room could have scripted. By Tuesday morning, The #insulin truce trends alongside clips of Douglas and Behar hugging, remixed with swelling orchestral covers of Lean on Me. A 16-year-old diabetic from Ohio starts a Change.org petition titled Make Insulin Affordable Now. It's signed, Michael Douglas and Joy Behar, and it hits 100,000 signatures before lunch. Douglas, nursing coffee on his Malibu deck, watches the numbers climb on his iPad and calls his assistant, "Get me the kid's parents on the line." Within an hour, he's FaceTiming the girl, her insulin pump visible on a lanyard around her neck. "You're the real star," he tells her, voice cracking. "We're just the loudmouths who got lucky." She cries, he cries. The clip leaks and garners 10 million views. Behar, meanwhile, is in a Midtown studio taping a PSA. "I'm Joy Behar, and yes, I yelled at Michael Douglas. But kids shouldn't yell for medicine." The spot airs during prime time, paid for by an anonymous donor who turns out to be Douglas himself. Pharmaceutical lobbyists scramble their packs, flood Capitol Hill with counter-ads, but the public tide has turned. A Senate subcommittee schedules emergency hearings, subpoenaing CEOs who once golfed with studio heads. C-SPAN ratings spike. Yes, C-SPAN because Douglas announces he'll testify in person. Behar, never one to be outdone, declares she'll sit in the gallery to keep him honest. Pundits dub it The View versus The Vault. Behind the scenes, the co-hosts form a text chain titled Operation Insulin, sharing donor leads, policy drafts, and memes of themselves as superheroes. Sunny Hostin connects them with a Harvard health economist. Sarah Haynes cold calls a Republican senator who owes her a favor from a past interview. Whoopi moderates like a UN peacekeeper. The foundation they teased becomes real. The Douglas Behar Fund for Medication Equity, seeded with $1 million from Douglas's production company and another from Behar's stand-up residuals. Board meetings happen over Zoom. Douglas in a baseball cap, Behar and Curlersa arguing over bylaws the way they once argued over cue cards. A pharmaceutical whistleblower reaches out with pricing documents. The fund hires lawyers. The documents leak to the Washington Post. Front page for 3 days straight. Stock prices plummet. Class action suits bloom like desert flowers after rain. The girl from Ohio flies to D.C. on a ticket paid by the fund, testifies beside Douglas, her voice steady as she describes rationing vials in her high school bathroom. Senators wipe tears. Cameras flash their Bill Gaines co-sponsors from both parties. Behar live tweets the hearing. Michael just said a malarkey. I'm so proud. The internet crowns them #unexpected besties. Late-night hosts beg for joint appearances. They choose a children's hospital fundraiser instead, wheeling in carts of stuffed animals while cameras roll. A pharmaceutical giant blinks first, announcing a voluntary insulin price cap at $35 a month. The announcement cites public pressure and productive dialogue. Translation: they lost the narrative. Douglas and Behar watch the press conference on a hospital TV, sharing a bowl of Jell-O. "We did it," he whispers. She squeezes his hand. "We're just getting started." Get-go. Summer arrives with the bill stalled in the House, a victim of parliamentary procedure and dark money ads portraying Douglas as a socialist Hollywood elitist. Conservative influencers resurrect clips of him praising Fidel Castro in the 80s. Progressive activists dig up Behar's old jokes about Midwestern voters. The truce phrase. Douglas appears on a podcast and snaps, "I'm not here to be everyone's Santa. I'm here to get kids their medicine." Behar, on a rival network, fires back, "Don't go rogue, Michael. We had a brand." Their teams panic. The foundation's donation page flatlines. A crisis Zoom convenes at 2 a.m. Pacific. Whoopi logs on in a head wrap. "You two are acting like divorced parents fighting over custody of insulin." Laughter breaks the ice. They agree to a joint town hall, Neutral Ground, moderated by a pediatric endocrinologist. The event sells out in 6 minutes. 10,000 seats at the Kennedy Center. Tickets resell for thousands. Proceeds to the fund. The night is electric. Douglas in a dark suit, Behar in emerald green, trading barbs like old vaudeville partners. A 12-year-old boy asks, "Will my mom stop crying about copays?" Douglas kneels. "That's why we're here, buddy." Behar adds, and why I'll keep yelling until she doesn't have to. The moment trends Congress feels the heat. A bipartisan amendment attaches the insulin cap to a must-pass defense bill. A poison pill politics in reverse. The House vote is 312-118. The gallery erupts. C-SPAN cameras catch Behar hugging a Republican congresswoman she once called a danger to democracy. The president signs the bill on national TV, flanked by the Ohio girl and a dozen other kids holding vials like Oscars. Douglas and Behar stand behind, arms around each other, the camera lingering on their clasped hands. The Chiron reads from shouting match to law in 18 months. Pharma stocks greater startup biotech firms promising low-cost generics raise venture capital overnight. The Douglas Behar Fund pivots to epilepsy meds, then EpiPens, then rare disease orphans. Annual galas become the hottest ticket in D.C.A. Politicians beg for tables. Celebrities bid six figures for selfies with the duo. A Netflix documentary crew shadows them for a year. Title cards flash, the yell heard round the world. The premiere is at the same hospital where they share Jello. Nurses who once rationed doses now administer generics at cost. Behar jokes in the QA, I still think Michael's a diva, but he's my diva. He kisses her cheek to thunderous applause. The film wins an Emmy. They accept together, Behar in sequins, Douglas in tears. Acceptance speech. We proved daytime TV can save lives, one argument at a time. 5 years later, the foundation has distributed $50 million in patient assistance, funded 3 generic insulin plants in the U.S., and lobbied successfully for global price transparency treaties. College campuses teach a course called Media, Conflict, and Social Change. Required viewing, the original view clip, the town hall, the signing ceremony. Douglas, now 84, publishes a memoir titled Losing It, Finding Us, dedicating it to Joy, who taught me anger can be architecture. Behar, 81, tours a one-woman show from The View to Victory, selling out Broadway for 16 weeks. Their friendship is tabloid cadney. Paparazzi catch them at Naboo arguing over the check, at Mets games heckling umpires, at the Oscars presenting Best Documentary to the Netflix crew that followed them. A children's book debuts, The Day the Grown-Ups Yelled for Good, illustrated with cartoon versions of Douglas and Behar as superheroes caped in insulin vials. Schools adopted for Civics Week. The Ohio girl, now in medical school on a Douglas Behar scholarship, interns at the foundation. She calls them Grandpa Mark and Aunt Joy. Annual reports list outcomes in human terms. 1.2 million fewer skipped doses. 87,000 parents slept without panic. Pharma evolves. Some companies rebrand as Patient First, others fold under litigation. The duo testifies annually before Congress, now on auto-renewing meds for seniors. Their ritual, Douglas brings bagels, Behar brings attitude. A senator jokes, please don't walk off, we can't afford the ratings dip. Laughter fills the hearing room. On the 10th anniversary of the fight, The View reunites the panel for a special. The set is rebuilt with a plaque, site of the yell that healed. Douglas and Behar enter to a standing ovation. The same table, new microphones. Whippy, gray but glowing, asks, regrets? Douglas, only that I didn't hug Joy sooner. Behar, regret? I got a law, a best friend, and better ratings than Oprah. Pinch me. They unveil a time capsule to be opened in 2055, the original Mic Pack, the insulin bottle, a flash drive of every viral clip. The audience includes the Ohio doctor-to-be, now engaged, her fiancé Tilda copyright wearing a Douglas Behar Act Survivor t-shirt. The show ends with a surprise. The president awards them the Presidential Medal of Freedom in a Rose Garden ceremony taped for the episode. Medals around their necks. They bow to each other first. The Chiron fades, from Meltdown to metal. Cameras pull back on the iconic table, empty now but echoing with a decade of change. A generation later, the capsule is opened on live TV by the Ohio doctor and her own daughter, a college freshman studying public policy. Inside, the Mic Pack, cracked but intact. The insulin bottle, now a relic in a world where a month's supply costs less than a pizza. The flash drive, its files preserved in the cloud. The original clip plays a Douglas storming off, Behar shouting after him, and the audience, many born after the event, gasps at the rawness. Historians call it this spark that lit the healthcare reformation. Textbooks footnote it beside the March on Washington. Douglas and Behar are gone. Douglas at 92, Behar at 90, but their joint headstone in a small Bermuda cemetery reads, "They yelled, we healed." The foundation, now $100 million endowment, funds every rare disease drug approved each year. The View, in its fourth decade, still opens episodes with the plaque cam. New hosts tell the story to wide-eyed interns. The doctor's daughter, holding the McPack like a torch, announces a new initiative, global generic manufacturing in Africa, named The Next Yell. She presses play on the flash drive. Douglas's voice fills the studio. The fight continues. The audience rises. Outside, Times Square billboards flash their faces with the caption "Legacy, activated." Somewhere, a child with diabetes takes a dose without her parents checking the bank balance first. The circle closes, the yell echoes, the work goes on. And truthfully, after listening to that entire exchange, can you honestly fault him? Drop a comment below and share your thoughts on this jaw-dropping showdown. And make sure to hit subscribe for more tales of celebrity interviews spiraling totally out of control.